record on this computer. There we up. All right, let's get rolling. So last time, if I remember correctly, we created a kind of a fight room where we're going to set up our death match sequence thingamabob, right? And so that guy currently looks like um, super awesome scene right here with so not a whole lot of stuff going on here, but we want to be able to switch over to the scene under certain circumstances. All right, we looked at how do you create random numbers, and I think what was the thing, have there be something like a 30% chance. So when we tell our player to start moving towards one of the exits, okay, at that point in time we have the thank you, at that point in time there is a possibility of running into a monster along the way, right? So we want to create that possibility. Now you can do this different ways, but my intention was that, you know, it would only happen while you're on your way to that exit. You know, some people say, oh, well, what if we're already through the exit or something like that? At the end of the day, I don't necessarily care, but you know, I kind of wanted, you know, you're on your way to an exit. You you have a somewhere there's a coin flip. There's a 30% chance you might run into a monster, and then you're in this this other situation. Okay, so with that in mind, we have to look at, well, how do we govern, at what point do we have that possibility popping up that we might be running into a monster, right? All right, so what I would probably do, and there's different ways you maybe would have thought about accomplishing it. Let me do zoom in on player there. So one thing I'm going to do, and this is just what's coming to my mind as maybe a first step for doing this. We already have logic in place that prevents our player from rolling in the direction towards an exit that's not there, right? So we don't have to change that at all. If instead what I do is I just put a couple of invisible game objects halfway between all the exits, right? And then on trigger enter, we roll the dice and decide, should I be in the death scene or the fight scene, whatever it is? Make sense? So we don't have to write any more logic into this. All right, so what I'm going to do here is just so I can place them more easily. And some of you are going to be significantly more talented than me at this. I'm going to just make them cubes because those are going to have nice hit boxes for us to bump into. And then I'll just turn them off so you can't see them. is what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to throw a cube here. We're going to call this monster trigger, something like that. Okay. All right, and I'll go ahead and drag that cube right here. All right. Now what we want to do is we want to put a script on this guy. All right, so this is going to be our monster trigger script. Now, before I forget, on the box collider here, I'm going to set this guy up as a trigger. All right, that way if we run into that dude, he we're not dealing with physics. Our player doesn't bounce off this dude and head back the wrong direction. We want to just interject a place where there becomes a decision. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a script. We're going to call this the monster trigger script. Okay, so we'll go into scripts. I'll create a new script, C# script. We'll call this guy monster trigger. Okay, good enough. We'll go back. Oh, Ninja. Go back to our monster trigger game object thing. And I'll go ahead and drag my monster trigger. That is so weird. Why did 2 always show up in there? Does that happen to all you too? Like, you'd think that's something that they would easily be able to bug out of there, right? Like, you know. You really trust me. You really want these things to just completely conflict with each other. Okay. So what we're going to do is here, basically we're going to put these things in there as an Easter egg. So that, as you're debugging your program and wondering why things are acting funny, right? you finally, after 11 hours of debugging, stumble upon the fact that you have two identical scripts running on the same object and they're in competition with each other. Well, I rounded down for you. I assume yours would be more than 20 or more. Yeah, days probably. Yeah. Okay. This guy's juggling toasters like the like the Rubik's Cube people. You've seen those, the jugglers with Rubik's Cubes, and they're like solving them behind their back and stuff. Isn't that ridiculous? That seems like something he can do. He has all these talents that are not programming. All right. So all right. So let's go and again, we're going to kind of grow this organically. Like I've kind of been telling you over and over again, we're going to take this one step at a time. So I'm going to go into my monster trigger. And I'm not going to try to solve any of the world's problems yet, or all the world's problems yet. I'm just going to go ahead and add my on trigger enter thing here. And we'll just do a little print statement, say, entered, how do you spell that? Entered monster trigger. All right. I just want to prove to myself that I'm getting to this place. Okay. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to duplicate this game object 4 times. That way I can place it in the path of my 4 different places where my my player might go. Before I duplicate it though, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn its mesh renderer off. So now it's invisible. All right. Okay, so now you can't see it. It's there. It's got a hitbox that won't have any physics stuff on it. It's always good when if you put the physics stuff on it anyways. Now you got these like invisible things you can bump into. Okay, but so it's a trigger, so you won't bounce off of it or anything. You can't see it, but we will logically enter that place. So I'll go ahead and copy this guy. Oh, how many times did I do that? There, we got 3 of them, 3 additional ones. So there's 1. And 2, and I'm of course placing these guys pixel perfect right in the center. I've done all the math. All right, call that good. All right, so all these guys have that same script on them, and right now, and they're all triggers, and right now that script just prints out monster trigger entered or whatever I typed in there whenever something collides with it at the trigger level. So physics is in play to make sure that we are getting that opportunity regardless of which direction we're going. I have 4 of these boxes right now, right? But remember, we have already governed this, so our player can't roll in the wrong direction. I can't go south. I can't go west. I can't go east. I promised I press the buttons. But now I can go north. It's going to roll right through it. No harm, no foul. But if I go to console, we see here, entered monster trigger. All right. So we have given ourselves the opportunity. Now, if I'm in this room, if I go back down to the south, it's going to enter it again, so on and so forth. All right. So now we've given ourselves the opportunity. Oh, and now I think it makes sense. So I'm guessing it was you that asked the question, can it do anything enter, right? I'm guessing you did it with the trigger thing similar to this. Okay. It's because we're hitting the box twice, right? So when we rolled out of the room, we hit it on the way and we hit it again on the way into the room, right? Okay. So we can decide to account for that or not, but now it makes sense why you were saying, hey, is it just when we're leaving the room or could it also when we enter the room? All right. So now we want to do some stuff while we're in there. Last time we did some random number of thingamabobby stuff, right? So inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and roll a random number. Wasn't there a random dot range? A couple of those guys. And I'm going to roll this guy from 1 to 100. And we'll say int chance to fight. Didn't have to put that in a variable, but I will. And I'll go ahead and just put a little dash here. We'll throw a chance to fight out there, making sure that we're getting a percentage out of that. Okay, again, one little step at a time. Okay, we're not trying to do everything at once. Takes 2 seconds to go back, hit the play button, check it again. We'll roll out of here. There was an 83 and a 41. Go back south. There's a 29. Another 29. Okay. Oh, and there's my other, where was that guy from? Where did I do my random stuff last time? Player script? Player controller, maybe? Here was my random numbers I did last time. I'm just going to go ahead and yank that sample code I gave you for the random number rolling out of there, so I don't have extra random number stuff showing up that I'm not using. All right, so we'll go back to our, what's it called, monster trigger. All right, so we have this chance to fight thing here. Now, we decided that there's a 30% chance to get into a fight, right? So if, you can decide which end of the spectrum you want to be on, but why don't we say if the chance to fight is less than or equal to 30, fight's going to happen, right? So we'll say if chance to fight less than or equal to 30, start a fight. Else, just for right now, else, this guy again, we will print no monsters found. Okie dokie. So now let's test this. It's gonna, textually tell us whether or not we should be getting into a fight or not. Okay, so we'll hit play again. Roll the dice. No monsters found on the way in. We started a fight on the way into the next room. We can decide if we want to handle that, but now I understand where your question was coming from. Okay, so seems like it's kind of doing what we wanted to do. So if we were to start a fight, when do we start fights? We start fights inside of this guy right here. So just for the sake of argument, let's comment that out so we almost get a little like, hey, this is where fights start in here. We want to go ahead and we want to launch our scene. And I believe it's like a scene manager thingy, right? I have to import something. Using Unity, is the editor engine? Scene management. Nailed it. All right. So then we're going to say scene manager dot, what is that? Load scene. Load scene. And then I got to give it the name of the scene. What did I call this dude? I called my scene. Oh, I called it fight scene. I don't know why I'm clicking the other one. All right, I called it fight scene. So there's the name of my scene that we're going to load. So now instead of having text, we're going to load ourselves into that that scene. Now, the one thing we're going to have to think about, you didn't really have to think about it for this assignment because we're not actually doing our fight yet. But when the fight's over and death has occurred, right, and we come back to our map, what's going to be the current state of our dude? Does he does he pick up where he left off, still rolling out of the room? Do we just place him in the center of the room where he would have ended up after the fight? you know, kind of like he came out of the cave, he's, you know, bloodied up or whatever, but he's already in the next room. We could decide how we want to handle it, but for right now, we just want to throw him into that next room, right? All right, so this should do that. So, all right, didn't hit it that time. Didn't hit it that time. Try again. Dun, 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 dun. You can't be right. You can't be dodging it that many times. No monsters found. Oh, I see. Oh, hold on. I don't think I saved my script. Go in here. Make sure you save your script. Yeah. Common mistake, right? You saw I came back here, was compiling scripts. If you make some logic changes, make sure you save your script. Otherwise it, you know, it won't be over here. All right. No monsters there. No monsters there. No, ooh, couldn't load because it has not been. Oh, right. Same thing we did last time, right? So we got to go to our file menu, build settings. And we got to add that new scene. So scenes in build. Do we have to go into that scene first? It's probably the easiest. It's not just a plus sign here. All right, fine. Oh, can you? Well, I guess it doesn't matter now. Let's go into this. I open the scene. I'll go into build settings and tell it to add open scenes to the build settings. So now it knows about that guy. Go back to this dude. Okay, so now we're in our fight scene. Okay, so now we are, let's say, accurately getting into our fight scene. So what were we supposed to do next? We're supposed to now add some additional stuff to our player and our monster. So we were supposed to keep track of what hit points, armor class, and then damage, how much damage they do. Okay, so we're gonna go into our scripts thing. Now, what we're really saying here, I think I still have for player, did I leave, oh, I did not leave inhabitant in there. Let's see, do I want to put inhabitant back? There's both, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to create a, actually, will it do it in here? I'm interested. I'm going to say add a new class. And we're going to call this class. Let me name it. Or we're just going to crash. I think it might be the latter. Yeah, I was not a fan. Let's see who's not. Oh, Visual Studio. Yeah, he did not like that. So let's just force quit that. Back to this dude. Go to our assets. Go to our scripts. Did it already put the new guy in here? Oh, yeah, it did. Did actually create the class. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put our inhabitant .java back in here. Except it's not .java, it's .cs now, right? Inhabitant. All right, so now we have that. I'm going to double click on this guy. Yes, I understand you died unexpectedly last time. All right, so this is our inhabitants. We got to change the name of it. Man, it did not like that. Get rid of these guys here. Yeah, what is this dude upset about? Where there's inhabitant. Well, I don't want any of that stuff. I want this guy to be just like a player. Oh, this is public class inhabitant. What was it so upset? Just gonna let this guy reload over this side. Close this, reopen inhabitant. Are you getting the errors? Yeah. Well, let's keep rolling with it. So then we're gonna say player here. This guy comes from inhabitant. Redefine type system dot void. So here, I'm gonna kill Visual Studio and just relaunch it. I have a feeling this is all left over from us trying to create that class inside of Visual Studio. Man, it's like an infinite loop of just death. All right, force quit. Good there. Just open it on player. Yeah, yeah, I do want to provide some feedback. This isn't working. One of the worst mistakes of my life was creating this inhabitant class. This ruined my week. let's get rid of that guy. Let's see if we could um so now we have to open up player. Oh, possibly. Is Unity like holding open a link to Visual Studio or something? Let's even close Unity Hub. We might be restarting our computer here. Hey. Lesson is don't create a new script inside of Visual Studio. That is the last thing you want to do. Because what we're going to do is we're going to try to connect that to your Unity project. Never again. You will never launch it again. This is awesome. Yeah, it's actually coming from Rosetta, which is the translation thing for the Mac stuff. Okay. Oh, hold on. Launch you open project. Is that my project? Choose. Trying to open. Do I want to just ignore this? This project you're opening contains compilation. Oh, just enter. I'm going to ignore those. Compilation errors are fine. Skip new version. Yeah, I'm possibly trading my Tesla in for Jeep Grand Cherokee EV, like a hybrid EV plug-in. We're wheeling and dealing right now. All right. So now current error is on the player because we made the player extend inhabitant, which no longer exists, right? I wish I could kind of, well, actually, you know what? I can. If I right click on this, I see reveal in Finder. I open this with something else. Let's see if we can just get rid of all connections to that inhabitant, death knell, and see if we can. All right, so let's see what happens now. So we'll go to reopen. Oh my man, that guy is upset. All right. Well, I already edited the thing. I mean, that's not the problem at this point. Visual Studio is just like in a bad way. I think rebooting the machine is probably the path of least resistance, but that is going to kick our online people off. All right, hold on. Then I do have VS Code, right? Let's just operate off that. What is this called? Code?
It was up there.
Oh, there we go. Hide this again. Man, it gives me a lot of welcome stuff in here, doesn't it? Really? All right, we're gonna open a folder. Is this my project? No, it's Rollerball. Put one in there. Where's my downloads? What I call it? Get repositories. Get repos. That dude. Dungeon crawler, assets, scripts. Good enough. Okay. Yes, I trust the authors. I'm just going to ignore that for right now and not deal with that part of it. All right, so we'll go into this. We're going to go into player. We could edit some stuff. Let's call that good. Is my error at least gone over here? It appears to be. So I'm going to go ahead and create my new C# script here, call it inhabitant. I'll come back over to Visual Studio Code. I should now have that new inhabitant guy here. We don't want him, and let me make the font a little bit bigger here. Everybody see that now? All right, so this guy is going to be used for inheritance purposes. So we're going to get rid of that. Oh, maybe that was the problem. Do we get rid of no system collections? That's not part of what needs to be there for a normal class. This should be okay. Yeah. So I'll do that. We'll say public inhabitant. We'll take no parameters for right now. We'll call that good. We'll go into player. We're going to say a player is an inhabitant. Call that good there. Let's make sure Unity isn't flipping out over this situation. Okay. We'll keep rolling with this for the for a moment. It's kind of funny. It's got to be some like lock file or something like that on visuals. I bet you rebooting will probably fix it, but that'll kick our online folks off. Let's split the video into two separate halves. Okay. So we're going to decide that a Now, while we're at it, why don't we go ahead and also create a monster? So we'll create another C# script. Okay, so we're going to create a monster here. I know we originally had monsters, got rid of them, but now we're bringing monsters back into the mix. All right, so now we have a monster. Okay, and again, monsters will not be mono behaviors, but they will be inhabitants. And they're not going to have this starter update stuff, but they will have a public monster. Well, this has no argument constructor right now. All right, so what we decided is that both monsters and players are going to have hit points, an armor class, and an amount of damage that they do, right? So since they both are going to have these types of things, what we're going to do is we're going to put those at the inhabitant level. Okay, so this is just object-oriented programming stuff. This isn't even Unity stuff, even though Unity's given us a little bit of a rough time. I don't actually know whose fault it was, Unity's or Visual Studios, or I guess just my poor decision-making there, right? You just rolled the dice one too many times. All right, so we're going to be putting some of this stuff inside of inhabitant. So what we're going to do is when we're building a brand new inhabitant, we're going to be giving ourselves, so we're going to say protected int HP, protected int AC for armor class, protected int. Actually, for damage, didn't I say when they do damage, it's going to be in a range? Okay. Or did I say to make it so that they do a core amount of damage when they first start? We can always change it later. So if you did damage funny, that's fine. So we'll just start damage off like that. So when any new inhabitant is born, we're going to go ahead and roll some dice. All right, so I'm going to create a random. R is equal to new random. We'll say R dot here. What was C#? I know I brought this up last time. So generating random numbers in C#. This is the random class. Where is this guy? What namespace is this dude in? Tell me what namespace. Guys, random. This guy is in namespace system. All right, so at the top here, we're going to say using. So it's just using system. I'll say using namespace system. Then R dot. We're going to say int. Actually, say this dot HP is equal to R dot. What is it next? It's a disaster. Next returns a positive integer, returns an integer that is less than the specified maximum value. The specified minimum and maximum includes minimum but excludes maximum. Okay. So we're going to say what it was the range for hit points. 10 to 20. Okay, so we're going to say 10 to 21 for this next. Because if you use this version of next, just showing you in here, there's 3 different versions of next. Remember from last semester what it's called when you have multiple methods with the same name but a different name, number, and or type of parameters? What's that called? No, that's if we were writing it, we could overload a method. I'm talking about what is it called when a class has more than one method with the identical name, but they take in a different number and or type of parameters. It's a fun to say, but funky name that'll be good for coding trivia at some point in time. Starts with a P. Polymorphism. Remember that guy? It was on some trivia slide. I always do it, so it had to be on a slide. If somebody remember it, you talking about that? Nobody remembers that. It would have been when we first talked about inheritance. But in any case, we have this idea of polymorphism. I'm not going to test you on that, but it is something to kind of keep in mind behind the scenes. It's the idea of having more than one method with the same name, but a different number and or type of parameters. So here's an example of polymorphism. This random class has 3 separate functions that are all called next, but they take in a different number and or type of parameter. One of them takes in no parameters, another one takes in a single integer, another one takes in 2 integers. Okay. Now, they do slightly different things, but they all have the same name. And when I make a call to that function, in this case, C# knows which version of that function I'm talking about based on which parameters I give it. In this case, I'm passing it 2 integers. I'm passing it 10 and I'm passing it 21. Notice when we look at the documentation here, it says returns a positive random integer within the specified minimum and maximum range, includes minimum, but excludes maximum. So this will give me a number between 10, and if I put a 21 at the far thing, the largest number it'll give me is a 20. So this will give me between 10 and 20. All right, makes sense? So I'm going to set my hit points to something between 10 and 20. What's armor class supposed to be? All right, so we'll say 10 and 18. What's damage supposed to be?
Whenever I loaded it, the monster got like the maximum of everything the player got. Like
Oh, I see. Yeah. Now, if you didn't want to do it this way, if you didn't want to go and look up the random number stuff or C#, how C# does it, you could have made your constructor take in the 3 values, and you could have rolled the dice over on the Unity side, right? You know, you could have used Unity's random number generator, which I gave you starting code for, and then say, well, inhabitants take in the hit points, the armor class, and the damage. So when we're instantiating our stuff on the Unity side, building our monsters, right, we'll just pass in those 3 values that we randomly rolled the dice for over in Unity. In this case, I'm saying, look, all inhabitants are going to have these things. Here's our ranges just that we made up or whatever. And we'll go ahead and use C#'s random number generator to accomplish this. Okay. And that guy lives inside of this namespace called system. And we'll see if Unity gives us a hard time in dealing with that dealio. I might regret using Unity's or using C#'s random number generator instead of Unity's, but let's roll with it for now. That way we can keep our connection between learning traditional programming and doing Unity stuff. And, you know, so right now, this is just plain Jane C# stuff. Has nothing to do with Unity at the moment. All right. So he's decided all inhabitants have these protected things. If I go back to player, notice that we also have a name and a room. I'm going to go ahead and say that all players, well, all players and monsters will have a name, right? So I can go ahead and actually extract that guy from the player side, put him back into the inhabitant side, but make sure it's protected so I have access to it inside of player. All right, so now I took private string name out of player and I put it as protected string name into inhabitant. Similarly, I'm not sure if this is going to make a difference for the way we ultimately end up doing it. We might not care what room the monsters are in. In fact, actually, why don't we leave it like this for now? Because only players have a current room. In our game, the way we're imagining our game right now, monsters never actually get linked to a room, right? They kind of pop up in this 30% chance fight. And then we just take them into this little side thing and say, okay, kill yourselves or not, right? Okay, and then we'll come back and continue on with life or give the player a reboot option or something like that. So as we're keeping track of stuff right now, a monster may never actually get linked to a room under the hood. All right. So we'll just differentiate our players a little bit here by saying, you know what, players do have a current room they're in where monsters do not, but all inhabitants will have a name. Okay. So we've already said that a player inherits from inhabitant. This is remember this guy right here? This is equivalent to Java's extends. Remember that dude? Okay. So this is how we're handling inheritance here. We're going to go over to monster. A monster also extends inhabitant. Very first thing we're going to do inside of our player constructor is call our parents constructor. Very first thing we do inside of our monster constructor is call our parents constructor. The parent of both of those guys is inhabitant. Inhabitants constructor takes no parameters and does all this stuff. Now, we probably do want it to take one parameter, right? Actually, no, we don't. Yeah, we do. We need it to take the name. So we're going to update inhabitant a little bit here. String in C# is lowercase s. So we're going to have this guy take in a name. We'll say this dot name is equal to name. So all inhabitants will get their name set. So the constructor for inhabitant will take in a name. Notice that the player constructor currently takes a name in as a parameter. We're just going to pass that buck and send that name into our parents constructor inhabitant for him to go ahead and build the inhabitantness of our player using that name. Monster, the constructor for this guy, will also take in a name. And we'll go ahead and pass that name on to the parents constructor for inhabitant. So inhabitants constructor is going to take in the name. He will set the protected string name variable. He'll then create an instance of random, and he will go ahead and set up hit points, armor class, and damage for us, which then spill through to both players and monsters. Players and monsters will both have a name, a hit points, an armor class, and a damage, and we make sure that those things are available inside of those child classes by making these guys all protected. All right, questions about that? Go ahead. It's who? I think super is the right word. Well, let's find out. I'm pretty sure that C# calls the parents constructor with super. Call parent constructor. It might have a special syntax for that. Called base. So there's base. Oops. All right, there's base. Doesn't like base? Are you lying? Are you still lying? Now, you didn't have to do this for your homework. You could have written the classes separate. I just wanted to interject some new programming stuff in here. I'm pretty sure this is how it works. It's screaming at me. Oh, my Unity never screams at me. Use the keyword base. Give me a moment.
Air and out.
Well, worst case, we just won't use inheritance in here, but there shouldn't be a reason why we can't use inheritance. Oh, hold on. That's funky. Yeah, the way it's looking like it's colon base name like that. Is that just trying to be annoying?
I think so.
Is that just trying to be annoying? So does that get Unity to stop complaining? Okay. Now, since we only have a minute left, let me tell you why I find this annoying. So again, connecting this to your larger computer science education. So I think I've said in here before, my background is in language theory. So I write programming languages. Well, I used to write programming languages. Now I golf. Okay. Okay. But this gets back to in CSC200 when we talked about all languages, all our modern languages come from C. Okay. So a lot of times, and I teach from this perspective that the language doesn't matter. Programming is the skill set, right? So whenever I get into a language that either I haven't used in a while or whatever, I can make pretty good guesses at how something's going to work. Now, I know that Java came strongly from C. We know that C# came extremely strongly from Java, lawsuit based and stuff like that. So typically, and I think I even mentioned when we first started talking about inheritance, I talked about a language called Objective-C, where inside of Objective-C, the thing always starts off with this self equals init thing, even if you're extending object. Okay, it always does that, and at the end, it always returns self. Self is the equivalent of the this keyword. All right, so every single constructor always has this sandwich in it, where this very first line effectively is call my parents constructor. So commonly, like in Java, instead of saying self equals init, the variable self gets set behind the scenes by us just calling the parents constructor like that. Okay, or if your parent constructor takes no parameters, you don't even need to call it. Okay, but in Java, we would say something like that. Super name, like I tried to write here. Now I'm relatively okay with them putting base there, although I feel like it's just them arbitrarily trying to use a different syntax. But when they move it out of the actual constructor code into the definition line for the constructor, that starts breaking the kind of your best guess with the tradition of C programming for no good reason. So it would be interesting to know why they made that choice. But in any case, that's what they're doing there. It's the same thing that's happening under the hood. It's just surprising that they deviated so much from C++ and Java. C++ and Java do it the same way. Why would they just arbitrarily deviate? I can't think of a reason why it would make it higher performance. All right, so no homework for Wednesday. We'll finish this up. I might add some graphics or something in between now and Wednesday if I have some time.
If you can figure it out.
Figure which out? Oh, that part's easy. If you just watch a YouTube video or something?
No.
Oh. Unity has built into it something called an asset store. You can go there and they have all sorts of free assets like 3D models and things like that. But you can also just go find MP3 or a WAV online for audio and drag it in there. I mean, it's not hard to add graphics, and where it starts getting a little bit more sketch is when you want to do some animation stuff. You have to create this. That's not really hard either, but that requires a little bit more effort to like say when your guy's going forward, which if you want to make him look like he's marching, you can create an animation around it, and that's its own kind of prefab. So not hard either, just kind of the same thing. I saw you said 2:30. I have to
2:45.
2:45. Okay. Let me message you on Slack to confirm. Did you already turn your assignment in? Did you turn your assignment in for today?
No.
Okay. For now, why don't you go ahead and turn it in? Just give me a little note there saying that we're figuring it out. I won't grade you down for it or anything. So
So, I mean, because if I turn in.
it'll be the same code as last time, I realize.
Okay.
Just give me something to grade, but give me a little note saying that.
Okay.
And then you and I will figure out how to get yours fixed.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, 2:45 or even like later.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know that you're here.
Yeah, well, worst case is we can get on a Zoom call either later tonight or even tomorrow, since you don't have new homework done. We'll get you figured out. Okay, and it won't hurt your grade. Okay, sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Yep.